Hey, everybody. Welcome to the initial episode of the Drop Step podcast. I am your host for today, Keith Rivas, joined by two staff writers that write with me at the Lead Media Sports Media. Go ahead and introduce yourselves to the audience.
All right. So my name's Jimmy. I'm from LA, California, Los Angeles area. Born and raised. I'm 22 years old and grew up a Lakers fan. But yeah, I'm excited to start this podcast. I just love writing and talking about the NBA in general.
Yep, and my name is Cameron Johnson. I'm also staff writer, as Keith said, for the Lead Sports Media. And I was born in Minnesota, small town USA of about 2,000 people. Lived there my entire life. I'm 17 years old. I've been a Timberwolves fan my entire life, and I'm ready to get this thing going.
All right, guys. So the first thing that I think we should bring up is, both conferences are going to look a lot different. The West got a lot stronger in the East. They got, at the very least, more interesting with LeBron not in it anymore. So let's start on the Eastern side of things. Jimmy, who do you see winning the East and why?
Well, I see the Celtics coming out of the East. I think that if I'm correct, I believe that they won the East last year, and I think they're only going to get stronger this year. You know, with the return, of course, with LeBron James out, you have the return of Kyrie Irving now fully healthy. You have Gordon Hayward coming back. Still have Al Horford. Jason Tatum's going to be even better this year. I just don't see anybody competing with the talent that they have right now.
And Cameron, who do you see coming out of the conference?
I gotta agree with Jimmy. To me, it's not even that close. I think Boston could win somewhere close to 60 games with just depth at every position. Behind Kyrie, you have Terry Rozier, who was a playoff star last year. Behind Jaylen Brown, you got guys like Marcus Smart, who came back. I mean, they're stacked at every position. Jason Tatum, he's going to be a beast this year. They have guys who most people might not even know, like Aaron Baines. That guy's a stud. He's defensively great, a good rebounder. I mean, I don't see it as very close. The only team that could compete would be Philly to me, but with LeBron gone, Boston's got it all taken up.
It's not too often you hear on podcasts that there's uniformity, but I think Boston definitely stands out as the strongest team in the conference, especially with their depth. But for me, I don't know if I'm ready to say Philly is ready to be on that level. I saw a lot of holes in them when they actually got to the playoffs, especially in Ben Simmons. But for me, I would think that a team that can compete with Boston, and I think is going to be very interesting to watch, is Indiana. I think Victor Oladipo didn't really get a whole lot of credit in Orlando or Oklahoma City, and he's found a way to make the Pacers relevant. And I think the way Kawhi Leonard is, I'm not prepared for people to even believe in Toronto right now because we have no idea what Kawhi is actually going to be able to do.
Right.
But Indiana should have eliminated LeBron in the first round last year. They had everything going for them in that first round. So I think that those are the two teams that I think are going to make a lot of noise in the East. But Jimmy, who do you think is going to give Boston a run for their money?
I kind of agree with Cameron on picking the Sixers, just because I think that they really show that they have a really solid foundation last year. I mean, I know you talked about the holes, but I think with another off season, and I think with Markelle Fultz being fully healthy, they're going to be ready to really make some noise out east. And I agree that Indiana could potentially shock some teams because I mean they did take Cleveland to 7 games, and Victor Oladipo I think is going to get even stronger this year. I mean they should have won that series against Cleveland if it weren't for LeBron James buzzer beaters. So I see Philadelphia being the main challengers, but I could see Indiana creeping up in there too.
I don't think any of us really see anywhere near what Meta World Peace predicted earlier this summer, where I think he had New York and Indiana in the conference finals.
Yeah. I don't think the Knicks are quite there yet, but I mean, they have Porzingis, so that's good for them.
They've got that going for them.
Yeah, they got that's the one thing that they got is Kristaps Porzingis. But to me, like if I said it before, I'm saying it again. I think Philly is the only challenger. I don't think Indiana, even with the offseason signings, I don't think they have enough firepower to even slow down Embiid. If Fultz comes back and he's killing it like everyone says he's going to, he's been working with Drew Hanlon in the offseason, who's resurrected some careers. He's made some careers. I mean, Simmons is an incredible passer. Can't shoot yet, but there have been some videos on Twitter circulating, but I mean, he's a great player. And Embiid, when he's healthy and he's on the court and he's awesome to watch. Like I was watching them when he was on his run last year, like when they were playing really well. I was watching them over the T-Wolves because the T-Wolves are dysfunctional, but I would put them as the main or the number one contender, if you will, to the Boston Celtics this year in the East.
And that's more at the top of the conference. Staying in the East, who do you guys think is a team that's going to sneak in maybe in the 8th or 7th spot in the playoffs?
I like, this is something that I've seen a couple times. I think, I'm going to go out on a limb. I think the Brooklyn Nets have a shot.
Interesting.
It's a hot, heating take, but I think when you put D'Angelo Russell on a court with a bunch of athletes, I mean, it was a fun team to watch last year. They beat my T-Wolves a couple times. I mean, I think Brooklyn could seriously have a shot at sneaking barely into the 7-8 seed. I mean, Charlotte's going to be at one of the two, like 6, 7, 8, like they always are. And I mean, there's some other teams that are going to be down there, but I think Brooklyn could potentially sneak in. Hot take on the first episode of the Drop Step Pod.
Yeah, I'm gonna see someone maybe like a team, maybe like the Miami Heat getting into that spot, just because I think they haven't improved or really gotten worse since during the off season, and other teams around them have gotten better. I just see them slipping down a bit from last year and finishing in that 7th or 8th spot.
Yeah, I do think Miami is underrated, I think, by a lot of people just because LeBron's not there and Dwayne Wade coming back is still in limbo. But for me, I really like what Chicago is putting together, and I'm not entirely sure if this is considered a hot take, but I'm going to take the Bulls 7th seed, and I think that whoever ends up being the 2nd seed is going to be in for a heck of a fight in the first round. I think those 2-7 matchups for the next couple of years are going to be great to watch in the East because whoever's in first, I think, is going to be more of a runaway team and more of like the expected team to beat. But 2 through 8 could really, they're going to be pretty even. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Chicago, Brooklyn and Miami all play out because they've been borderline before. But now with LeBron not in the conference, it really opens the door for a lot of Cinderella runs that we haven't seen for a long time. Something I do want to get your guys' opinion on while we're still in the Eastern Conference is, and Jimmy, we'll start with you for this one. What do you feel is going to happen with Kawhi Leonard in Toronto in year 1?
I actually think LeBron James plays a big component in this because for some reason the Raptors just couldn't get over the block no matter what it was. But with him out of the picture, I'm not discounting Toronto out of the top 2 seeds yet. I think if Kawhi Leonard can regain that form that he had during that MVP type season in San Antonio just a couple of years ago, I can see them finishing in the top 2. Not exactly challenging Boston for that first spot, but I think they're going to be better than what a lot of people think because they held on to pretty much every asset that they needed. Kyle Lowry, but they only lost DeRozan as a main piece. So I definitely see them being one of the top teams.
All right. To me, I think that it's not going to pan out just because when you look at their team, I don't think he fits with Kyle Lowry that well on a basketball court. I just don't see that working together. And Lowry's one of their main pieces, and I don't think he's going to be that great this year. Just my personal opinion, speculation. I think they're making the playoffs because they have Valanciunas, they have Serge Ibaka, they have Fred VanVleet, they have all these guys on the bench that are going to help them out. CJ Miles too. They're going to have all these guys, push them to the playoffs with a little bit of depth, a little bit of talent up top with Kawhi, if he's healthy, that is. I think they will make the playoffs, but I don't think it's going to end great. I think that he's going to leave after this year personally, and it's kind of just going to be a mess for Toronto to deal with now.
Yeah, I can only imagine being a diehard Raptors fan, especially the people that are part of that.
God.
That fan base is incredible. I mean,
I know.
They definitely have a special fan base, but you just basically sold out your best player, arguably ever, for a rental that more than likely is going to head to the Lakers and switch conferences and then make the West even more crazy next year.
Yeah.
For me, though, I think it's what it comes down to in terms of like determining how good they're going to be is whether Kawhi throws a fit or not, because San Antonio kind of just had to sit it out, and it made me feel really bad for them because you kind of really understand that Popovich is the kind of coach that doesn't put up with that very well. He's very much a no-nonsense kind of guy, and to have to go through like a whole season of Kawhi injury and then teammates talking smack about him and making not so subtle remarks about him not coming back from injuries. And, it makes me wonder, we're often surprised at how soft Kevin Durant is when someone like argues with him on an Instagram post. But for Kawhi, his way of dealing with it, because he's a super introvert, is he just shuts down. And if he does that, then I think the fan base is even going to be even more heart-wrenched, because on top of not really getting the most out of the 1 year that you had Kawhi Leonard, he's going to literally make you look like you traded DeMar for nothing.
Right.
And then you're going to see San Antonio do at least decent. They're not going to be like a 1 or 2 or 3 seed or anything like that, but they're going to be doing, they're going to be playing healthier basketball. Yep. And I think Kawhi is a little contagious. So he got away with it in 1 year. So I think, now that he's in Toronto, that'll be something to watch. Shifting gears, though, to the better of the two conferences, Cameron, who do you think is going to be the top seed in the West? Is Golden State or Houston a lock, or is there going to be a surprise team?
I think you got to look at Golden State or Houston. I mean, just talent-wise, they're on another level, both of them. Golden State, they have 5 All-Stars on the same team. That's never happened before. It's incredible. It's going to be a fun brand of basketball to watch. I'm going to hate every second of it. I appreciate dominance, and I like that, we had our run, but now it can end, please. But with Boogie, I mean, getting him for $5.1 million on a 1-year deal, that's highway robbery. They got better after winning the title, sweeping LeBron James in the finals. And, I mean, I don't think there's any match if Boogie's healthy. Even if he's not, they still have 4 All-Stars, and they're probably the greatest team ever. So.
I have to agree. If the Golden State Warriors stay healthy, I just don't see anybody legitimately competing with them at all. I mean, you're talking about adding Boogie to a team that has won 3 out of the last 4 championships. A team that doesn't even need him to win. So I don't see anybody really competing with them at all. And for that second spot, the legitimate challenger, I don't see anybody coming close to Houston. I mean, they may have downgraded a little bit, losing Trevor Ariza, one of the most versatile wings. He can defend, he can shoot the 3, space the floor, but they still have Clint Capella, they still have Chris Paul, James Harden, obviously. Don't know how Carmelo Anthony is going to fit into that mold yet, if he'll have chemistry issues there, but still the talent there, it's undeniable, and I don't see anybody coming close to Golden State or Houston, Golden State especially.
I think this might be an area where I have more of a hot take. I think I've said this in previous conversations with staff, but I really do see the Utah Jazz being that kind of competitor, even though everyone thinks Boogie Cousins is going to make them invincible. If you look at how he handled locker room drama in Sacramento, and then not so much drama in New Orleans, but just sort of not wanting to be there. I am really curious as to if that's even going to affect, how the Warriors dominate. The Ringer had an interesting article not too long ago about that same issue of, are we sure that DeMarcus Cousins isn't going to ruin the Warriors? And I think until we see them play at least half a season together, we don't really know an answer to that question. But Utah was a team that beat Golden State, who had 4 All-Stars and even beat them when they were all healthy. Beat them by margins like 30, 35 points.
That's a good point.
On several different games. You know what I mean? LeBron James has also been a guy that, as great as he's been, he's struggled against Utah. And I think, and you have to remember, Donovan Mitchell wasn't even good for half of the season. The Jazz didn't get good until 39 games in.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have Mitchell, Gobert, the coaching of Quinn Snyder, I do think they're a dark horse. But until somebody proves that right, Golden State, I think, is safe to say they're going to be at the top. One team I think any of us brought up, which I think is interesting, is LeBron's new look Lakers. So, Jimmy, you're in California. Let's get your take on what LeBron and the Lakers, how they're going to do this season.
Yeah, I think it's just going to take time. I mean, you're adding LeBron James into a mix of young guys who are still developing. With Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, and Kyle Kuzma, they've really only had one season together, and they're still figuring themselves out, their roles on the team. I mean, this is the first time the Lakers have ever had quote unquote like alpha male on their team. So it's going to take time. And then when you add in a bunch of seemingly random veterans, Lance Stevenson, JaVale McGee, Michael Beasley, it's a very, very big change in a short amount of time that on paper it doesn't look bad. I mean, they're going to be good by the end of the season, but I think for the first 20 games or so, people are going to be questioning whether or not they can be contenders, which is why I don't see them finishing as one of the top 2-3 teams, just because their start is not going to be as good as people may be intending.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think their starting lineup's going to be Lonzo if he's healthy. I'm not sure about his medicals. It should be Lonzo. It'll be maybe Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, maybe Brandon Ingram at the 2. Who knows? LeBron, Michael Beasley, JaVale McGee, something like that. They lost Julius Randle, which kind of doesn't help them because he was really, really good last year. He dropped some weight, started, eating on some teams. But I think it's for sure going to take time, like Jimmy said, because you're adding, in my estimation, the best player in the league to your team with a bunch of young guys, which is exactly what Jimmy said. Great point. And I think you're going to have to use that to push yourself into the future instead of try to win immediately. And you got LeBron for 4 years. So you have time. It's just going to take a little bit of time. And I think this year is a wash because of Golden State. So this year, it's just about getting on the court with the guys, playing, figuring out a system, and then gearing up really for next year, especially with that free agency class, with Kawhi Leonard, with Klay Thompson, all those guys.
Right.
So for the Lakers, I think their ceiling is the 4th seed, and that's if they all play insanely well together. And that's assuming a lot of other teams don't take that spot. For me, though, I think the floor for them is the 6th. What do you guys think about where they're going to fit in the seeding?
I would say like anywhere from 4 to 6 is their range. Like you said, the floor is the 6th seed. That's what I would put them as, just because I think they're not going to be as good as Golden State. I don't think they're going to be as good as Houston. I don't think they're going to be as good as Oklahoma City. And I think they could slot in at 4. That's where I have them ranked.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think 4 to 6 is about the correct range. I don't see them finishing lower than 6 just because they have LeBron James on their team. But yeah, the talent out west is just too good right now for a fresh new team to really compete with in their first year together.
Is there one particular team in the Western Conference that you guys think is maybe overhyped or we think is going to be good and they're going to not do so well next season?
I think an overrated team. I think, honestly, I'm going to say it, Minnesota. I've seen on Twitter, people are like, oh, Minnesota's going to make like the 3 to 4 seed. And I'm like, no, they're not. It's not going to happen. I think Tom Thibodeau is the worst head coach in the NBA. I think he should be fired. I think Andrew Wiggins does not have it. I just don't think he has it. I think Jimmy Butler and Karl Anthony Towns is a great duo, but they don't even like playing with each other. It's completely dysfunctional. Thibodeau doesn't play his young guys. Josh Okogie and Keita Bates-Diop, the guys we drafted, which were great draft picks, they're not seeing the floor this year. They're not going to touch the ball. Tyus Jones, who's one of my favorite players, he's a good player. He didn't play last year. Jeff Teague played 36 minutes a game while there's guys on the bench who could be playing more. I'm going to shut up before I go for an hour on the Timberwolves and Tom Thibodeau, but I just don't think – I think we might make the playoffs. I'm saying the Timberwolves. I think they might make the playoffs. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the points on the Timberwolves. I think, well, to me, it's questionable if the rumors are true that he's trying to revive the old Chicago Bulls on his current Timberwolves team. I mean, he already went out and got Luol Deng. He might be going after Joakim Noah.
Noah just got bought up by the Knicks, so I mean,
yeah. So I mean, the opening is definitely there. So I don't see how that's going to work at all. Just because you have aging veterans going on your team who look like they're way past their primes. Yeah, I don't see the Timberwolves finishing anywhere higher than 6.
Yeah, I agree.
For me, I'm taking the Trailblazers. I think
good.
Getting swept by New Orleans in the playoffs last year, after beating Utah for the 3 seed outright. I think you had so much hype going into the playoffs. You're the third team right behind Golden State and Houston. You've made noise before with both of those teams in the playoffs, so there's history. There was history there, and a lot of people were not expecting the Blazers to have any real trouble with New Orleans, especially with Cousins not even playing in the series, and Portland couldn't get one game off of them.
Yeah.
And you could say, maybe it was just a bad timing or the team wasn't really together. But C.J. McCollum and Damian Lillard have been through this playoff junk together before. I think they're the Western Conference version of Wall and Beal. And I think, heading into this season, if they do anything short of the 3rd seed, it's going to be disappointing. But then we also need to be better, I think, overall, talking like general NBA media, people that watch it and cover the teams and everything, be better at critiquing teams that are faking it and trying to make it at the same time. And Portland, if they don't get their stuff together, I think by mid-season, I think they're going to be having to really start thinking about doing some major changes to their lineup.
And they've already talked about trading CJ.
Right.
Like that's come up. Mm-hmm. I don't think Lillard's getting traded because he's Damian Lillard, he loves the city too. You can see it. But they've talked about trading C.J. McCollum, and I think if it doesn't go well, like you said, trading deadline, he could be a prime target for a team trying to make the playoff push.
Yeah. The Portland Trailblazers kind of remind me of the Washington Wizards out east. How they just have a really good backcourt, but for some reason they just can't get it done in the playoffs.
Yeah, they run into similar hiccups as well. They'll play really good for whatever reason. Some years they'll make the second round. And then out of nowhere, they'll just be this trash team that can't get anything done in the playoffs. Right. They'll even have insane hot spurts throughout the regular season where everyone thinks that, suddenly it's their year. And before the week is over, they're the worst team ever. So now that we've talked about that, I want to get your guys' take on who will be the 2019 MVP.
I will go ahead and say it's going to be Anthony Davis. I think Anthony Davis is going to win the MVP because sheer talent. The guy last year, he's 6'11", 7 foot, throwing 28 a game on teams with like 16 rebounds. He's blocking 6 shots. He's going crazy on everybody. And I think their team's going to be better this year. Drew Holiday in the playoffs last year was incredible. He was awesome. He single-handedly almost beat Portland one game. I mean, and just with a supporting cast, they picked up Julius Randle. That was great for them. I think there's going to be a lot of speculation around him being the MVP, and I think it could happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the MVP race is going to be a lot closer next season. But I can actually see LeBron James picking up another MVP this upcoming season. Just because the MVP in recent years has been so narrative driven. With Russell Westbrook getting the MVP because of the triple-double record. And that was narrative driven because his team wasn't even that good. But because LeBron James could have arguably won the MVP for like the past 4 seasons, but he was on a stale Cleveland Cavaliers team. But now that he moved out west, I think the narrative will be kind of him reviving the Lakers, bringing them back to their glory days. And if he puts up the numbers that he has been putting up consistently in the past, I can definitely see him taking it home. But that being said, I can see some major competition from Anthony Davis if his team can win games, if his numbers can translate to success.
Right.
For me, I think I'm going to take a dark horse candidate for MVP. We didn't see a lot of him last season due to injury, and there's plenty of talk about him going elsewhere after the season's over. But I think on the Boston Celtics, if Kyrie Irving comes back, Gordon Hayward is the player that he used to be when he was in Utah, and the rest of their team plays how they did last season. Not only are they going to be very assertive and dominant in the Eastern Conference, but Kyrie is hopefully going to be the guy leading the charge. I don't really see a lot of the other guys being the leader, so to speak. I think that was actually probably a root of the issue about why Irving wanted out of Cleveland, was because he couldn't run the team. So this season, barring any crazy injuries again, this is going to be Kyrie's year to make it or break it and show teams, yes, I can lead a talented team to the playoffs. I can deliver, in the clutch moments as the go-to guy. So, again, bearing any crazy injuries, Kyrie Irving to me is a guy that stands out, because if he can win an MVP, it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be something that's necessarily talked about at the beginning or even middle of the season. But once it comes down to actually seeing who was the most valuable player, Kyrie Irving would have been that difference in Game 7 last year, getting them to the finals and beating LeBron. That would have been the exclamation point for Boston. So that's my take on it. But before we wrapped up the first episode of the Drop Step podcast, we'll do our final sign offs. And Cameron, is there any last little notes you want to leave for the audience?
I think we kind of covered everything that we're looking forward to going into the season, so I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think I'm good too. I think it'll be a very exciting season, just because of the crazy offseason moves that we've seen. Kawhi Leonard moving to East, LeBron James moving West. I think it'll be a really fun time.
All right. Well, that was the first episode of our new podcast, the Drop Step Podcast. You can check us out on Twitter. We'll have an Instagram page up shortly, and we'll be doing weekly shows on all of your NBA news, rumors, and highlights. So stay tuned, and we'll be back with more next week.